I dropped my wife off at the airport thinking it was just another routine business trip to San Francisco. But just as I was about to drive home, my 8-year-old son grabbed my hand, his voice trembling. "Dad, please don't go home tonight. I know something about Mom. You have to believe me this time." I looked into his eyes and saw real fear. I believed him, and we hid. And what I witnessed next still haunts me to this day. Before we get to what my son saw that made him beg me not to go home, tell me in the comments. Where are you watching from, and what time is it there? I want to know who's awake right now. Listening to the moment that saved our lives. Thursday night. SeaTac Airport. Rain speckled my windshield as I pulled up to departures. Kinsley leaned over and kissed me quick. "Already drove my Honda here yesterday for the prep meetings," she said, grabbing her carry-on. "So you've got the family car this weekend, babe." "It sounds good. See you Friday night. Love you." "Love you too." She disappeared through the sliding doors. Black blazer blonde hair pulled back every inch the professional heading to San Francisco. I didn't see the lie. Behind me, Lucas was silent in his booster seat, fingers twisting the straps of his dinosaur backpack. At 8 years old, my son was the watching type, the kid who noticed things others missed. I shifted into drive and merged into airport traffic. Just another Thursday night drop-off. Just another business trip. Just another. Lucas grabbed my arm. Not a tap, a grip. His small hand clamped onto my forearm hard enough to make me flinch. "Dad, we can't go home tonight." I glanced at him in the rearview mirror. His face was pale. His eyes were too wide. My first instinct was to sigh. Another worry, another shadow that wasn't really there. I opened my mouth to say something reassuring, something dismissive, but his hand was shaking. "Please," his voice cracked. "Please believe me this time." This time. Those 2 words cut straight through me, because he'd warned me before. The strange car parked across from our house 3 nights running, I'd told him he was imagining things. The phone call he'd overheard at 2 in the morning, I'd said it was a bad dream. I'd dismissed him, patted his head, sent him back to bed. And now he was begging me to believe him trembling in the back seat, and I could see it in his eyes, pure terror. Not imagination, not anxiety. Real fear, the kind that comes from knowing something bad is about to happen and no one will listen. I was coasting toward the I-5 exit. Home was north, 20 minutes to Lake City. Our house with the blue door and the maple tree, the house that was supposed to be safe. But Lucas was shaking, and I'd been wrong before. I'm an engineer. I calculate risk for a living. And in that moment, with rain drumming on the roof and my son's hand gripping my arm, the math was simple. Risk of believing him and being wrong. We waste a night. Risk of not believing him and being wrong. Something terrible happens. The equation wasn't even close. I changed lanes. "Okay," I said quietly. "I believe you." Lucas exhaled, shaky, desperate. "You do?" "Yeah, buddy, I do." I met his eyes in the mirror. "I'm sorry I didn't before." He nodded, blinking fast. I took the exit toward home, but my hands were steady now. My mind was already problem-solving. If something was wrong, if Lucas had heard something, seen something, I needed to know what we were dealing with. I'd been buried in work for years. Late nights at Boeing weekends, catching up on reports, always chasing the next promotion. I'd told myself I was providing for my family, but the truth was uglier. I'd stopped paying attention to my own home. Not anymore. So instead of heading home to Lake City, I made a turn that changed everything. We were going home, but we weren't going inside. We sat in darkness, my truck parked beneath the shadows of 2 tall oaks, across the street from our house on the quiet Lake City block. I'd spent 2 years designing that house. Every beam, every system. It was supposed to be safe. Hours crawled by. Lucas dozed against the window. I watched our porch light the blue door, the maple tree swaying. Everything looked normal. By 10:45, I felt ridiculous. "Maybe we should just go check," I whispered. "Maybe you misheard." Lucas jolted awake. "Wait, Dad, please. Just a little longer." The desperation in his voice kept me there. But my engineer's brain was calculating probabilities, and they weren't looking good. Then headlights. No, not headlights. A dark shape rolling down the street with its lights off. A van. Black or navy, impossible to tell. No front plate. It crept past 2 houses, then slowed and stopped right in front of ours. My heart hammered. 2 men climbed out. Black clothing, hoodies up, faces covered. They moved with purpose. No hesitation, no nervous glances. Professionals. "Who are they?" I breathed. "The bad people Mom talked to," Lucas whispered. They walked up our driveway like they owned it. I expected them to force the lock, smash a window. I reached for my phone to call 911. Then one of them pulled something from his pocket. A key. My key. He slid it into the lock. The deadbolt turned with a soft click. They walked inside my house. How? My voice cracked. How do they have a key? There were only 3 keys. Mine in the cup holder, Kinsley's supposedly in San Francisco, and the spare we kept in a lockbox in her home office, the office she always kept locked. Mom gave it to them, Lucas whispered. I heard her. She said she'd leave it in an envelope. My wife gave strangers a key to our home, to the house where our son slept. Flashlight beams swept the windows, systematic, searching. Then I smelled it. Sharp, chemical. My brain cataloged it automatically accelerant, petroleum-based, not natural gas. Smoke curled from multiple windows at once. Professional job, multiple ignition points. They doused the house, laid trails, probably disabled the smoke detectors. Orange light bloomed inside, too fast to be accidental. The fire caught like it was meant to. Flames licked through window frames, glass shattered from the heat. The 2 men walked out, calm, unhurried, got back in the van and disappeared around the corner, just as sirens wailed in the distance. Someone else had called 911. I fumbled for the burner phone in my glove box, dialed with shaking hands. Fire at 2314 North Lake City Way, fully engulfed. I hung up before they could ask questions. Strategic. I wasn't ready to reveal we were alive. Fire trucks screamed up the street. Firefighters jumped out, pulling hoses, shouting, but I knew they couldn't save it. The house was burning too hot, too fast. 2 years of work turned into ash. Lucas was crying, soft hitching sobs. I told you, Dad. I pulled him close, pressing his face against my shoulder. You saved us, son. You saved our lives. He had. If we'd been inside, if we'd been sleeping, those men would have locked us in. We would have had maybe 2 minutes, maybe less. My 8-year-old had saved us from being burned alive. As firefighters battled the flames, I made another call. This one to a person my father had told me to trust, if I ever needed real help. Attorney Emberlyn Turner, Dad's friend from his union days. He'd pressed her business card into my hand at his funeral. 5 years ago, already weak from cancer. Keep this, he'd said. If you ever need someone who won't back down, call her. I only hoped she'd remember him. From my hidden vantage point a block away, I watched my wife arrive at the scene of the destruction she'd orchestrated. The Uber pulled up just after 11:30. Kinsley stepped out, saw the smoking ruins, and her performance began. Oh God, my family. Liam Lucas. She ran toward the house, heels clicking. A police officer caught her before she got too close. She collapsed against him, sobbing. I gripped the steering wheel, knuckles white. The fire chief approached. Ma'am, we haven't found any remains yet. The fire was extremely intense. Kinsley looked up, mascara running. They have to be in there. Liam texted me good night at 9. They were sleeping. But I saw it. The micro-expression when he said no bodies. Not grief, fear. She was scared they hadn't found us. Preliminary assessment suggests the gas system. The chief continued. We'll investigate fully. The gas system, her voice pitched higher. But Liam just designed it. He's an engineer at Boeing Fresh Sobs. Setting up her narrative. Blaming my engineering. I reached for Lucas's smartwatch, typed quickly. Hey babe, Lucas and I stopped for late dinner. Home soon. Sent. Kinsley's phone buzzed. She glanced down. Her face went white. Bone white. She looked up, scanning the crowd, the shadows. Eyes wild. No longer performing. Pure panic. She knows we're alive. I shifted into drive and pulled away slowly. No lights. Dad. Lucas's voice was small. Why don't we tell the police? I chose my words carefully. Because right now it's our word against Mom's. She has an alibi. Cameras saw her at the airport. We need proof first. Remember how I didn't believe you adults make that same mistake? Lucas nodded slowly. Evidence? Like on TV? Exactly. I drove to a cheap motel near SeaTac, paid cash, gave the name John Smith. The room smelled like old smoke and disinfectant. Lucas collapsed onto the bed, asleep within minutes. I sat in the bathroom door, closed my father's business card, trembling in my hands. Emberlyn Turner, attorney at law. 2 years ago, dying from cancer, Dad had pressed this into my palm. Son, I don't trust that wife of yours. If you need help beyond what police can do, call this woman. I'd been offended then. 1 a.m. I dialed, expecting voicemail. She answered on the third ring. This is Emberlyn Turner. Ms. Turner. My father was John Harmon. He gave me your number 2 years ago. If you needed help your wife couldn't know about. Her voice was steady. John warned me this might come. What happened? Liam, you know who I am. Your father told me everything. He never trusted Kinsley. Asked me to watch over you. Talk, quickly. I explained. Fire. Arsonist. Lucas's warning, the key. Hiding. Watching Kinsley perform. Don't go to police yet, Emberlyn said. They'll need hard evidence, not just testimony. Meet me at my office tomorrow, 9 a.m. I don't have evidence. Not yet. Her voice carried certainty. But I know exactly where to start your wife's car at the airport. At 2 in the morning, I left Lucas sleeping in the motel room and drove back to SeaTac Airport. Not as a husband dropping off his wife, but as a man hunting evidence of murder. The parking garage was nearly empty. Level 3, Section B. I found the silver Honda CR-V quickly. I sat for a moment. What if there's nothing? But Lucas's voice, I heard her dad. I got out. The spare key was on my work keychain emergency backup she'd never known I kept. I unlocked the driver's door and slid inside. Her perfume hit me first, then the chemical smell, the same accelerant from the fire. I searched methodically. Glove box, console, under the seats. My fingers touched plastic under the passenger seat. A burner phone. I powered it on. 15% battery. One saved contact, C. I opened the messages. 5 days ago, Kinsley. I can't keep living this lie. I want to be with you, Chad. C. Then do it. Insurance money. Fresh start. 4 days ago, Kinsley. I'm scared. What if something goes wrong? See, babe, I found the guys. Professionals. It'll look like his gas system malfunctioned. His design. No one suspects an engineer's mistake. 3 days ago, Kinsley, I got the $50,000. Cash. See, good girl. Leave the key under the back doormat. They'll handle everything Thursday night. I kept scrolling. 3 days ago later. Kinsley. What about Lucas? See collateral damage, babe. You want a new life or not? Can't have a kid without a father. Kinsley. You're right. No loose ends. The phone slipped from my hands. Collateral damage. She called our son collateral damage. I opened the door and dry heaved onto the concrete. 2 days ago, see Thursday, 11 p.m. You'll be at airport, perfect alibi. I'll be at gym cameras everywhere. Untouchable. Thursday morning, Kinsley. I love you. See, love you too, babe. Tonight we're free. By tomorrow, you're a rich widow. I forced myself to keep searching. Glove box bank receipt. $50,000 cash withdrawal. Monday. Kinsley's signature. Center console airport locker, key number 247. Life insurance documents. Liam $3 million. Lucas $500,000. Beneficiary. Kinsley Harmon. Trunk my blueprints, my gas system designed for our house. Covered in red circles. Kinsley's handwriting. Sabotage here. Make it look like accident. Blame design flaw. She'd studied my work for months, learned my engineering to weaponize it, turned my safety design into a murder weapon. I photographed everything, every text, every document, the blueprints, sent copies to secure email, then took the physical evidence, phone, receipt, blueprints, insurance papers. I sat in my truck shaking. I'd designed that system to keep us safe. She turned it into a weapon to kill us. I let myself cry for 5 minutes, then stopped. Engineer mode. I had evidence. Now I needed a plan. Dawn broke over Seattle as I drove back to the motel. I had texts and documents that proved conspiracy. But Emberlyn was right, we needed more. We needed to make her confess. By the time Lucas woke up Friday morning, I'd already met with Emberlyn Turner and formed a plan that would either prove my wife's guilt or destroy what was left of my life. Her office sat in an old brick building, downtown files, stacked everywhere family law certificates, lining the walls, photos of clients she'd helped. I spread the evidence across her desk. Phone photos, the burner phone blueprints, with Kinsley's handwritten notes. She studied everything in silence. When she reached the collateral damage text, she let out a low whistle. This is damning, Liam. But here's the problem. A defense lawyer will argue the phone was stolen, planted, faked. They'll say Kinsley never wrote these texts. My chest tightened. So it's not enough. It's strong. But we need her voice. On tape. Confessing. How she thinks I'm dead. Emberlyn smiled grimly. That's exactly why it'll work. You're going to rise from the dead. An hour later, Detective Tom Wilson walked in. African-American, 50s, salt and pepper hair. He reviewed the evidence with the expression of a man who'd seen too much, but refused to look away. 28 years on the force, he said quietly. I've seen bad things. But hiring someone to burn your own kid? He shook his head. Will you help us? I asked. Or is this, I know male victims aren't usually stop. His voice was firm. I don't care about gender. I care about truth. His eyes met mine. And I have a son too. Your wife tried to kill a child. That's evil. Something loosened in my chest. Someone believed me. Someone with a badge. "We need a confession," Wilson said. "These texts are strong, but a good lawyer could dispute them. We need her voice admitting she hired those men. How we wire you. Public place. My team undercover. You make her talk." Emberlyn leaned forward. Saturday morning, 10 a.m. Coffee shop on Capitol Hill. Public crowded cameras everywhere. Wilson nodded. "I'll have cops posing as customers. Barista. A couple at the corner table. I'll be in a van outside with the audio feed." "But she thinks I'm dead?" I said. "Why would she show up? Because we're going to make her think the bodies were found?" Emberlyn answered. She typed quickly and showed me. "Mrs. Harmon. This is fire investigator Armstrong. We found remains in the rubble. Need to discuss identification and insurance claim procedures. Can you meet me tomorrow, 10 a.m.? My stomach twisted. "You think she'll come? She'll be desperate to know if you're really dead?" Emberlyn hit send. We waited 2 heavy minutes. Then her phone buzzed. "Yes, where I need to know about my family." Marigold Coffee, Capitol Hill. 10 a.m. Another buzz, "I'll be there." Wilson stood. She took the bait. That afternoon he taught me how to wear a body mic under my shirt. Make her talk about the fire. Ask what happened. Mention the key. Bring up Lucas, then Chad. Defensive people confess. I practiced hands, shaking. Lucas watched from the motel bed. "Will you be safe, Dad? I promise," I said. That night, with Lucas sleeping beside me, I lay awake. Tomorrow I would face the woman I'd loved for 15 years, the woman who tried to kill our son. I had one chance to make her confess, one chance for justice, one chance to keep my promise. Saturday morning came with that crisp Seattle air that made everything feel possible. But as I walked into the coffee shop on Capitol Hill with a wire under my Boeing jacket, all I felt was the weight of what I was about to do. I arrived at 9:45. The cafe was crowded. Saturday regulars, espresso machines humming. "Check, 1, 2. Audio good." Detective Wilson's voice through my hidden earpiece. "Got you?" I whispered. Undercover cops in position, barista, behind the counter guy with laptop couple by the window. All Wilson's people. "Let her talk," Wilson said. "Open questions. Make her explain." I ordered coffee, hands shaking. Sat at the window table, Wilson specified. 9:58. "Breathe, Liam," Wilson said. "You got this." At 10:02, the door opened. Kinsley walked in, black dress, minimal makeup, hair pulled back. The grieving widow. She scanned the cafe, searching for fire investigator Armstrong. Then her eyes found me. I watched it happen. Recognition, confusion, shock that drained the blood from her face. She froze. Someone bumped her from behind. She didn't move. "Liam," barely a whisper. "Hi, Kinsley. Surprised to see me." She walked toward me like a zombie, sank into the chair, reached for my hands, trembling. I pulled back. Her voice cracked. "The fire. They said no bodies. No bodies because we weren't there." "You weren't home? Where were you?" "Lucas warned me. Our 8-year-old son saved our lives." Her eyes went wide. "Lucas, he heard you on the phone. Thursday morning, planning something. I don't know what you're talking about." "We saw them, 2 men. They had a key to our house." I leaned forward. "Our key? Maybe burglars. Burglars with a key who poured accelerant through every room." "How do you know?" "Because I'm an engineer. I know what arson smells like." Silence, her mind spinning. I pulled out folded papers, slid them across the table. Printouts. Screenshots of the burner phone texts. Every message to see. Kinsley stared at them. Her face went gray. "Where did you get these?" "Your Honda. Long-term parking. Level 3, Section B." "You broke into my car." "I used the spare key. The one you forgot I had." I pointed to the text. "This one. Leave the key under the doormat. You let them in. This one. It'll look like his gas system malfunctioned. His design." My voice broke. "And this. What about Lucas? Collateral damage." I looked up at her. "You called our son collateral damage, Kinsley." She stared at the papers. No words, no denials. Then she looked up, and her eyes had changed. Cold, calculating, empty. No more panic, no more pretending. For a long moment she just stared at the text. Then she laughed. It was bitter cold, devoid of humor. When she looked up, the woman I'd married was gone. Sitting across from me was a stranger wearing her face, and that stranger was about to tell me the truth. Kinsley's laugh echoed through the crowded cafe, making people turn. She leaned forward, and I saw something I'd never seen before in her eyes, complete honesty. "You were always smarter than I thought, Liam." "Why, Kinsley?" My voice cracked. "Just tell me why." She looked around the cafe, then leaned closer, voice low. Because I've been suffocating for 15 years, dying slowly in that perfect life you built. I married you because I was 28 and desperate. Biological clock screaming. All my friends had kids. You were safe, stable. Boring as hell, but safe. I thought having a child would make me happy. She laughed bitterly. 10 years of IVF. 10 years of needles and procedures and failures. $100,000 for a kid I never really wanted. I felt sick. Lucas. Lucas was an obligation. Her voice was ice. An expensive, time-consuming obligation. I played the mom, but inside empty. And you? God, you were never there, Liam. Always at Boeing. Always designing something. You married your career. I just lived in the house you bought. When's the last time you really looked at me? I couldn't answer. I was invisible. Then I met Chad, 6 months ago, at the gym. Her eyes lit up. He saw me. Really saw me. Made me feel alive for the first time in 15 years. So you decided to kill us? My voice shook. Chad has gambling debts. Bad ones. We needed money. She said it casually, like discussing groceries. Life insurance, the house. 4.5 million total. We could start over. Hawaii. New names. Free. It was Chad's idea initially, but I wanted it too. Your gas system. Perfect irony. I studied your blueprints for months, Liam. Learned exactly where to sabotage. Made it look like your mistake. Chad found the professionals. 50,000 cash. I left the key under the back doormat Thursday night. My hands clenched. And our son, she shrugged. Actually shrugged. What about him? He's 8 years old, Kinsley. 8. He was in the house. It was unfortunate. Collateral damage. That's what you called him. Chad wrote that. But yes, accurate. She leaned back. I wasn't leaving him behind. A reminder of you. A burden, quick death in his sleep, beats years of therapy and resentment. Her eyes met mine. I was being merciful, Liam. I stood up. My chair scraped loud against the floor. Merciful. My voice carried across the cafe. People turned. You were going to burn our son alive. Sit down, she hissed. People are watching. I don't care who's watching. I leaned over the table. Say it. Say exactly what you plan to do. Her face flushed red. She stood up, matching my anger. Fine. You want me to say it. Her voice rose, carrying through the suddenly quiet cafe. I hired 2 men to burn the house with you and Lucas inside. I wanted the insurance money to start a new life with Chad. I studied your engineering to make it look like your mistake. And yes, our son had to die. That was part of the plan. The cafe was silent, everyone staring. She looked around, realizing what she'd done. Sat down fast. Are you recording this? Yes. Her face went white. I opened my jacket slightly, showed the wire taped to my chest. Every word. Detective, you get that? Detective Tom Wilson walked through the cafe door, badge raised. Every word, Mr. Harmon. The barista dropped her apron, pulled out a badge. The guy with the laptop stood badge in hand. The couple by the window, both cops. They surrounded Kinsley's table. Kinsley Harmon, Seattle Police, you're under arrest. You set me up. She lunged for the door. A male officer blocked her path. Wilson pulled out handcuffs. Attempted murder of 2 people, conspiracy to commit murder, arson, insurance fraud. We could have been happy, she screamed at me as they cuffed her. Chad and I, we could have... Chad Lawson's in custody, ma'am, Wilson said calmly. He's cooperating with the prosecution. She froze. What? We picked him up this morning, I said. He confessed. Gave us the arsonists' names. He sold you out, Kinsley. Told them it was all your idea. No, he wouldn't. Plea deal, Wilson said. 20 years instead of life. As they led her toward the door, she looked back at me one last time. I expected anger, regret, fear. Instead, I saw relief. She was relieved it was over, relieved she didn't have to pretend anymore. I hate you, she said quietly. I hate you, Liam. I know, I said. You always did. I just didn't see it. As they led Kinsley away through the crowded cafe, she looked back one final time. And in her eyes, I saw something that would haunt me far longer than her hatred relief. She was relieved she didn't have to pretend to love us anymore. After 15 years of wearing a mask, she could finally take it off. The trial lasted 4 weeks. The prosecution built an airtight case. Detective Wilson testified about the wire recording Kinsley's voice, clear as crystal, confessing to murder for hire. They played it in that packed courthouse. I hired them. I studied his blueprints. I wanted him and Lucas in that house. Lucas wasn't there. Emberlyn made sure, but I was. I watched the jury's faces. Kinsley's defense tried everything: coerced confession, emotional distress, temporary insanity. Then the prosecution introduced the evidence from her Honda. The burner phone texts. What about the boy? Collateral damage. My blueprints, her handwriting. Sabotage here, make it look like his design flaw. Bank records. 50,000 in cash withdrawal the week before the fire. Chad testified. Plea deal. 20 years instead of life. He claimed Kinsley masterminded everything, promised him $3 million, said I'd designed a system perfect for an accident. The two arsonists testified, described how Kinsley provided the key, the blueprints, explicit instructions, paid them $20,000 each. And I testified about Lucas's warning, about hiding across the street, about watching two men use a key my wife provided to burn down my house with my son inside. The jury deliberated 6 hours. Guilty, all counts. Attempted murder, conspiracy to commit murder, arson, insurance fraud. 25 years. I felt nothing, no relief, no victory, just emptiness. Outside the courthouse, Lucas held my hand. He was 9 now, taller, quieter. Dad, is Mom coming home? Nobody, not for a very long time. He nodded, then so softly, good. That word broke something in me. 6 months later, we'd built a new life from the ashes. The divorce was finalized. I got full custody. The court terminated Kinsley's parental rights. Attempted murder of your own child tends to do that. I sold the Lake City plot. Couldn't rebuild there. Too many ghosts. Bought a smaller house in Ballard. 1 story. No gas system. All electric. Lucas helped to pick it out. He needed that control. The insurance payout came through. $1.2 million for the house and contents. Blood money. I put it in a trust for Lucas's future and donated $100,000 to a children's trauma center. Boeing offered me extended leave. I didn't go back. Couldn't. Every blueprint reminded me of how Kinsley weaponized my work. I took a position teaching engineering safety at the University of Washington. How systems fail and why engineers must anticipate malicious use. My students think I'm intense. They don't know why. Lucas started 4th grade. His teachers know what happened. Simplified version. They watch for signs. The nightmares come less often now. Used to be every night. Lucas would wake up screaming, smelling smoke that wasn't there. We do therapy. Twice a week for him, once for me. Dr. Beatrice Wells specializes in childhood trauma. She says Lucas shows classic PTSD symptoms. Hypervigilance, trust issues, fear of abandonment. He saved your life, she told me once. But he also lost his childhood the moment he realized his mother wanted him dead. My own therapist focuses on survivors' guilt and trust. I haven't dated. Can't imagine it. How do you trust again after the person who promised to love you hired people to kill your child? Lucas asks sometimes, Dad, why did Mom want us to die? I don't have good answers. Dr. Wells says he needs honest truth, age appropriate. Sometimes people get lost inside themselves. They make terrible choices. It wasn't your fault. Or mine. It was hers. He always nods, but I see it in his eyes. The same question I ask myself. How do you reconcile that the person who gave birth to you calculated your death as acceptable collateral damage? We're healing, slowly. But we're different now. Lucas doesn't trust easily, neither do I. The fire took our house. Kinsley's betrayal took something deeper. Our innocence. The belief that people we love won't hurt us. 3 years and 2 months after the night I chose to believe my son at SeaTac Airport, I sat on our Greenwood porch watching Lucas. Now 11 play basketball with his best friend Connor. The sound of his laughter was everything. I sipped coffee from the mug Lucas gave me last Christmas. World's best dad in crooked letters. I kept it on my university desk. My students thought it was sweet. They didn't know it was a medal. Lucas jogged over breathless. Dad, can I get water? I handed him the bottle. He collapsed beside me. Connor's dad is taking us to the Mariners game next Saturday. Can I go? Of course. Text me when you arrive and leave. He rolled his eyes. Dad, I'm 11, not 8 anymore. And I'm your father who almost lost you. Humor me. Quick side hug. Yeah. The nightmares came once a month now. Therapy monthly. He still checked locks at night. Probably always would, but it wasn't panic anymore. Just routine. He had friends. Played basketball. Wanted to be a civil engineer. Building bridges, Dad. Things that connect people, not houses that... He stopped. Didn't finish. I understood. I taught at the University of Washington 3 years now. Engineering safety. Teaching fail-safes. Preventing catastrophic failures. My tragedy became my mission. But I couldn't design anymore. Tried once. Panic attacks staring at blueprints. Every line I saw her notes. Her sabotage. That loss still hurt. But I'd accepted it. Teacher now, not builder. That's okay. Connor left. Lucas returned and sat beside me. Dad, can I ask something? Always. Do you ever think about Mom? Every day. Surprise in his eyes. Really? Yeah, not the way I used to, but yeah. Do you hate her? Pause. No. I hate what she did. But hate costs energy I'd rather spend on you teaching living. His voice quieted. I got a letter. From Mom. Prison. Last week. My heart stopped. Want to open it? Part of me wants to understand why. Part doesn't care anymore. Whatever you decide, I support you. But Lucas, you don't owe her forgiveness. You don't owe her anything. Did you forgive her? Long breath. No, but I let her go. There's a difference. Forgiveness means saying what she did is okay now. I'll never say that. Letting go means I won't carry the weight of her choices anymore. That I can do. Processing. So letting go is for me, not her. Exactly, you're smart, son. Lucas went inside. I sat alone. What haunts me isn't the fire, not the two men in black, not the trial or confession. What haunts me is knowing that for 15 years I shared my life with someone who saw us as obstacles, problems to eliminate. I'll never know when it changed, if it changed, or if she never loved me. Did she always wear a mask, feel real joy holding baby Lucas, or calculate even then? Every memory is suspect. Happy at our wedding or counting my salary. Her IVF grief, real or resentment. Did she ever love our son, or was he always collateral damage? Those are the ghosts, 15 years of false memories. That's what haunts me, probably always will. Lucas stepped out wearing Connor's jersey. Dad going to Connor's, back for dinner. 6 o'clock, your turn to set the table. Grabbed his bike, turned back. Hey Dad, thanks for believing me that night at the airport. Throat tightened. Always son, I'll always believe you. Smiled. I know, that's why we're okay now. He pedaled away. I watched him disappear. She didn't win. She tried to erase us, burn us away, turn us into insurance money. But we're still here. Wounded, yes. Changed, absolutely. But here. Healing. Moving forward. My 8-year-old warned me about his mother, and what happened next still haunts me. It does. Probably always will. But haunted isn't the same as lost. We survived. We're rebuilding. Every day Lucas wakes safe and loved is a day we win. We carry scars, but we also carry victory. And that is all that matters now. If you're hearing this true story, I need you to understand something. I ignored the warning signs for 15 years. The emotional distance, the cold calculations, the way Kinsley never truly bonded with Lucas. I told myself it was normal. That marriage was hard. That love changes over time. Don't be like me. Trust your instincts. If something feels wrong, a partner who seems detached, a relationship that feels transactional, a spouse who views your child as burden rather than blessing, don't ignore it. Don't rationalize it. Don't wait until someone hires arsonists. The lesson I learned, the one I teach my engineering students now, is this: systems fail when we ignore small cracks. Relationships are no different. That tiny doubt, that uncomfortable feeling, that moment when you wonder if you really know the person beside you, pay attention to it. I'm grateful to God that Lucas had the courage to warn me. That 8-year-old boy saved both our lives because he trusted himself when I'd stopped trusting my own judgment. This true story isn't meant to scare you. It's meant to wake you up. Check the locks. Listen to your children. Trust your gut. And never ever assume that because someone shares your bed, they share your values. This is one of those grandpa stories I'll tell Lucas's children someday, not to traumatize them, but to teach them vigilance. That's the true story of survival, paying attention before the fire starts. If this true story resonated with you, please leave a comment below sharing your thoughts. Subscribe to Grandpa Stories for more real-life lessons, and hit that share button. You never know whose life might need to hear this. Your engagement helps these Grandpa Stories reach people who need them most. Stay safe out there, friends. I was driving to my son's Christmas Eve party when the semi-truck hit me from behind on Interstate 94. The impact was so violent that my ribs cracked, my lung collapsed, and I was bleeding internally. When the doctor called Curtis to authorize emergency surgery, his response was ice cold. If he doesn't make it, let me know. Otherwise, I'll deal with it after Christmas. That's when I realized that the only son I'd spent my entire life loving didn't care whether I lived or died. I thought I was worthless, that nobody needed me. But when I woke up, the nurse told me, "Someone has already signed as your medical representative." When I asked to meet this person, I was stunned, because it was. I'm curious, where are you watching from? And if you were in that hospital bed, what would you do? Share your thoughts below. because the person who walked into my room that day changed my life completely. But let me take you back to the beginning of that night. It was Christmas Eve, and the sky over Jackson, Michigan had already turned that deep winter blue. I was behind the wheel, hands gripping tight. On the passenger seat sat gingerbread cookies I'd baked that morning and a honey-glazed ham I'd spent 3 hours preparing. Nothing fancy, but made with care. I'd been making this drive with a knot in my stomach for years. The signs had been there, phone calls that went unanswered, invitations that came late, visits that felt like obligations. But I kept hoping this year would be different. Traffic on I-94 was heavy with holiday travelers. I noticed the semi-truck in my rearview mirror, moving faster than everything else, weaving between lanes. I moved right to let it pass. The truck moved right too. Then everything happened at once. The car ahead hit its brakes. I stopped safely, but the truck behind me didn't. The impact was like being hit by a wall. Metal shrieked. Glass exploded. The airbag deployed. My body jerked forward and I felt something crack deep in my chest. The car spun, became a blur of lights and road and sky. Then a second impact from the side and my head struck the window. When the car stopped, I was facing the wrong direction. Steam poured from the hood. I tried to move but couldn't. Pressure crushed my chest. Pain radiated everywhere. I heard voices. Someone trying to open my jammed door. The sound of metal being cut. Hands reaching in. Questions I couldn't quite answer. "What's your name, Clayton? Who can we call Curtis?" "My son." The ambulance ride was sirens and speed and unrelenting pain. A paramedic kept me conscious. "You're doing great, Clayton. Stay with me." The hospital was chaos. Bright lights, voices calling out numbers I didn't understand. A doctor appeared above me. "Clayton, you've been in a serious accident. We need to see what's going on inside." After the CT scan, his face was grim. "We need surgery now. Internal bleeding, fractured ribs, partially collapsed lung. This is critical." The anesthesia pulled me under before I could think about Curtis, about whether he'd been called, about whether he'd come. The world disappeared, and I went with it. What happened next, I wouldn't learn until I woke up. But I'll tell you now because it's important you understand. 4 hours after my surgery successfully stopped the bleeding and reinflated my lung, a nurse made the call to my emergency contact. The phone rang once, twice, 3 times. Then my son's voice came through, music and laughter in the background, a party. Hello? Is this Curtis Reed?" "Yeah. Who's this?" "This is Henry Ford Allegiance Health. We're calling about your father, Clayton Reed. He's been in a serious car accident and just came out of emergency surgery. We need you to come in to sign authorization forms." A pause. The music continued. Someone laughed loudly. "How serious?" "Very serious, Mr. Reed. Your father was critically injured. We were able to stabilize him, but we need you here as soon as possible." Another pause. Longer this time. Then Curtis said in a tone so flat it made the nurse's hand tighten on the phone, "If he doesn't make it, let me know. Otherwise, I'll deal with it after Christmas." The line went dead. When I woke up, it was to beeping. Steady, relentless. Fluorescent lights blazed above me. Everything hurt a deep whole-body ache that told me something very bad had happened. A nurse appeared. Young woman, dark hair pulled back, kind eyes. "Clayton, can you hear me?" I tried to speak, but my throat was raw. She dabbed my lips with water from a sponge. "You were in a car accident yesterday evening, Christmas Eve. You're at Henry Ford Allegiance Health in Jackson. You had emergency surgery, broken ribs, internal bleeding, partially collapsed lung. But you're stable now." "Surgery?" The word floated heavy in my head. "Your son was called," she said, carefully pulling a chair close. "Curtis Wright." I nodded. He would have come. He would have been worried. "Clayton, I need to tell you something." She took a breath. "After your surgery, we called Curtis to let him know you were stable and to ask him to come in. We needed someone here, someone to sign forms, make decisions if your condition changed." I waited, my heart rate picking up. The monitor beeped faster. "He refused to come," she said quietly. "He said if he doesn't make it, let me know. Otherwise, I'll deal with it after Christmas." The room went silent except for the machines. I stared at her, waiting for her to say it was a mistake, a misunderstanding. She didn't. The pain in my chest suddenly had nothing to do with broken ribs. "But someone else came," she continued, and warmth entered her voice. "His name is Micah Sullivan." Micah Sullivan. The name hit me like a wave of memory. A scared teenage boy, 15 years ago, hungry and alone. "Micah," I whispered. "How did he—" "He heard about your accident on a police scanner. He used to be a volunteer firefighter, still listens to the emergency channels. When he heard your name and that you were being transported here, he drove straight to the hospital. She glanced at her notes. He arrived about 4 hours after your surgery. Asked if you were alive, if you were okay. When we explained that your son had refused to come, that we needed someone to sign authorization forms and make medical decisions, she paused. Mr. Reed, he got angry. Not at us. At the situation. I could picture it. Even as a kid, Micah had that fierce loyalty. He told Dr. Shapiro that you'd helped him years ago when he had nothing, that you'd given him food, taught him skills, believed in him. He said you once told him that everyone deserves someone who shows up. Her voice softened. He said, well, I'm showing up for him. My throat tightened. Tears burned behind my eyes. Dr. Shapiro was hesitant at first. You weren't related. Micah wasn't in your files. But he was persistent. He provided details about your life that proved he knew you. And with your son's refusal on record, we needed someone. She met my eyes. He signed legal documents as your temporary medical representative. Gave him authority to make decisions on your behalf if needed. He signed. I couldn't finish the sentence. He sat in the waiting room all night. Didn't leave. Didn't sleep. Just waited to hear if you'd be okay. He's been checking on you every few hours since. The tears fell then. I couldn't stop them. A boy I'd fed some meals 15 years ago had driven through the night to save me. Had signed papers to become my advocate. Had stayed when my own son wouldn't even answer the phone again. He's still here, the nurse said gently. Still waiting. Would you like me to get him? I nodded, unable to speak. She squeezed my hand and stood. I'm so sorry about your son, Clayton. But you should know you're not alone. You have someone who cares. Someone who showed up. After she left, I lay there staring at the ceiling, trying to process what had just happened. Lying there in that hospital bed, memories flooded back. 15 years ago, I met Micah Sullivan in the basement of St. Mark's Church. I was 58 then. My wife had been gone for 3 years. Curtis was away at college, calling less and less. I was working third shift at the automotive plant in Jackson and volunteering at St. Mark's food pantry on Wednesday evenings. It gave me somewhere to be, a reason to feel useful. That night I was sorting canned goods when I heard a noise. I walked around the shelf and found a teenage boy stuffing bread and soup into a backpack. He froze when he saw me. Eyes wide, body tense to run. Maybe 17, 18. Thin in that way that speaks of real hunger. Dirty clothes, uncombed hair, dark circles under his eyes. I walked over, pulled down more cans, beans, vegetables, peanut butter, and handed them to him. If you're going to take food, I said quietly, at least take things that'll actually keep you fed. He stared at the cans like he couldn't understand what was happening. What's your name? Micah. When's the last time you had a hot meal? Micah. He shrugged, trying to look tough, but his hands were shaking. Come on, I'm making dinner anyway. He followed me like a cautious stray cat. At my small house on the east side of Jackson, I made spaghetti and meatballs. He sat at my kitchen table and ate like he hadn't seen food in days. He probably hadn't. You can come back anytime you're hungry, I said when he was done. He looked at me like I was crazy. Why not? He came back. 3 days later, then again and again. Soon it was 3, 4 times a week. Over time, I learned his story. Foster care since he was 6. Multiple homes, none of them good. Abuse, neglect. He'd aged out at 16, too old to adopt, too young to survive alone. He'd been sleeping in a broken-down car near the industrial district. I started teaching him things, how to check oil in a car, how to wire a light fixture, how to balance a checkbook, how to interview for a job. Why are you helping me? He asked one night. Because everybody deserves somebody who shows up, I told him. You just haven't found yours yet. His eyes got wet. He looked away, embarrassed. I suggested trade school. You're good with your hands. You could be an electrician. We spent months on paperwork and applications, got him enrolled in the community college program. The day he graduated, I sat in that auditorium, the only person there for Micah, and watched him walk across that stage. He found me afterward and hugged me for the first time. Thank you, he said, for everything. You did the work. I just showed up. That's all I needed, someone to show up. After graduation, Micah got a job with a local contractor. Started making decent money, got an apartment. But then my life changed. Curtis got married. I moved to a smaller place closer to them. In the shuffle, Micah and I lost touch. Different phone number, different address. He came by my old house once, I heard, but I was already gone. I told myself he'd moved on, built his own life. That was what I'd wanted anyway. I never imagined that 15 years later, When I needed someone most, he'd be the one to show up. That's what I'd given him, not just food, but hope. Not just skills, but dignity. Not just help, but proof that someone actually gave a damn. And now lying in that hospital bed, I understood something profound. I'd spent 20 years chasing love from a son who couldn't give it, making excuses for his absence. But Micah, a kid I'd known for maybe 3 years, 15 years ago, had remembered, had listened to those emergency channels, had heard my name and dropped everything. Someone had shown up for me, just not the person I'd expected. I must have dozed off because the next thing I knew, there was a soft knock on the door. When it opened there, he was older, broader, but I'd know those eyes anywhere. "Mr. Reed," Micah said, quietly stepping into the room. The scared teenager was gone. In his place stood a man confident, capable, his work boots and flannel shirt, marking someone who'd built a life with his own hands. But when he smiled, I saw the boy I'd known. He came to my bedside and gently took my hand. "I'm so glad you're okay." "You came," I whispered. "Of course I came. Did you think I'd let anything happen to you? I hadn't seen you in so long. I tried to find you when you moved. Went to your old house, but you were gone. No forwarding address." He sat down. "I should have tried harder. You didn't owe me anything. That's what you always said. But I did owe you. Everything." He told me about his life. Sullivan Electrical Services, his own business with 3 employees. The house on Birch Avenue he'd saved years to buy. Still volunteering with the fire department, keeping that scanner on. "Everything I have started at your kitchen table," he said. "When I heard your name on that scanner last night, I've never driven so fast. I was terrified I'd be too late. My son," the words hurt too much. "I know," Micah said quietly. "The nurse told me." His jaw tightened. "I'm here now. That's what matters." A sharp knock interrupted us. Whitney walked in before I could respond, carrying a gift bag and wearing a forced smile. She stopped when she saw Micah. "I'm Micah Sullivan," he said, standing. "A friend of Mr. Reed's. I'm Whitney Reed, Curtis's wife." She looked him over with barely concealed disdain. "We wanted to come sooner," she said, not quite looking at me. "But it's been hectic. The holidays. Curtis has been beside himself." "Has he?" I asked quietly. "Of course. He's just been busy with work obligations, important clients." "Curtis refused to sign authorization for my surgery," I said. "That was a misunderstanding." He was stressed. "It was Christmas Eve. The hospital told him I might not survive. He'd been drinking. He told them to call if I died. Otherwise, he'd deal with it after Christmas." "The hospital has recordings," Micah said quietly, "of every call." Whitney's face went pale. "Clayton, please. This is a family matter." "Then maybe your husband should be here instead of you," Micah said, calm but firm. Whitney held out the gift bag with shaking hands. "We brought you something. Magazines, lotion." I looked at it, but didn't reach for it. "People have been asking questions," Whitney said, voice edged. "Family members. They want to know why Curtis wasn't here, why some stranger was signing paperwork instead of your son." There it was, the real reason. "You're here for damage control," I said. "That's not fair." "What's not fair is your husband leaving me to die on Christmas Eve so he wouldn't miss a party." Whitney's mouth opened and closed. "I should go." "Yes, you should." She left without another word. Micah sat back down, shaking his head. "I'm sorry." "Don't apologize. You said what needed to be said." He looked at me with those eyes that had survived so much. "Mr. Reed, how long has it been like this with Curtis?" I thought about it. Really thought about it. The unreturned calls. The visits that felt like obligations. The way Curtis looked at me like I was an inconvenience. 20 years, I whispered. Maybe longer. I just didn't want to see it. That was the moment I started to see the truth I'd been avoiding for 20 years. My son didn't love me. Maybe he never had. And I'd wasted 2 decades pretending otherwise. A week later, I was finally strong enough for discharge. The next morning, a social worker came to discuss my options. Her question was simple, but the answer changed everything. "Mr. Reed, let's talk about your discharge plan," Sarah said. "Who's your support system?" I glanced at Micah, who'd been there every day. "I have someone, and your emergency contact who's listed currently, my son, but I've seen your file. I know what happened." Sarah's voice was gentle. "You can change your emergency contact. Have you thought about it?" I looked at Micah. He sat quietly, not pushing, just present. "I want to change it. I want Micah to be my emergency contact and medical power of attorney." Micah's eyes widened. "Mr. Reed, are you sure?" "I've never been more sure." "I'd be honored," Micah said, voice thick. "I'll take care of everything exactly how you want." We signed the paperwork, right there, legal documents. transferring authority from a son who'd abandoned me to a man who'd shown up when it mattered. The next day, Micah helped me into his truck and drove to his house on Birch Avenue, a modest ranch with a neat yard and small porch. "It's not much," he said, "but it's home." Inside was clean and simple. He'd set up the guest room with fresh sheets and extra pillows. "I fixed this up for you," he said. In the living room, something caught my eye. On the mantel was a photograph Micah at my kitchen table, years ago, me in the background at the stove. "You kept this?" My voice broke. "I've always kept it. That kitchen was the first place I felt safe. You made me feel like I mattered." He paused. "Family isn't always blood, Clayton. Sometimes it's the people who show up. You can call me Clayton now," I said. "We're past formalities." He smiled. "Clayton it is." We settled into an easy routine. Micah would make breakfast, help with medications, then head to work. He'd check in at lunch, come home early for dinner. Evenings we'd sit together, sometimes talking, sometimes just being. On the third day, the phone rang. "Clayton, it's Lorraine Fuller, Curtis's aunt." I hadn't heard from her in months. "I heard what happened," she said, anger in her voice. "What my nephew did. I'm ashamed. It's not your fault. I'm having a family gathering this weekend. I want you there." My stomach dropped. "I don't think that's a good idea." "Curtis will be there. The family needs to hear the truth. All of it. Lorraine, you've spent years protecting him. Maybe it's time people knew who he really is." Her voice softened. "And I want to meet Micah Sullivan, the man who actually showed up." I looked at Micah, who nodded encouragingly. "All right, I'll be there." "Good. Saturday at 2. And Clayton, bring documentation. Bring proof, because Curtis will lie." After I hung up, Micah sat across from me. "You okay with this?" "I think so. It's time everyone knew the truth." "Want me to come?" "I need you to come. I can't do this alone." "You're not alone. Not anymore." The gathering was in 3 days. Curtis would be there. The whole family would hear what he'd said, what he'd done. Part of me dreaded it, but another part knew it was necessary. For 20 years I'd protected Curtis from consequences. I'd made excuses for his cruelty, his absence. But that ended now. It was time for the truth, and I was finally ready to tell it. On the day of the gathering, Micah helped me into his truck. "You ready for this?" I nodded. "It's time." Lorraine's house was already full. Cars lined the street. When we walked in, every conversation stopped. Lorraine came forward immediately. "Clayton, I'm so glad you came." She turned to Micah. "And you must be Micah Sullivan, the man who saved Clayton's life." She led us to the living room where Mildred sat, Curtis's grandmother, 90 years old and sharp as ever. The matriarch. "Clayton, come sit by me," she called. It was a position of honor. I sat beside her, Micah standing nearby. Across the room, Curtis and Whitney looked uncomfortable. Curtis wouldn't meet my eyes. Small talk filled the room, but the tension was thick. Finally, a cousin spoke. "Clayton, we heard about the accident. Curtis said it was a misunderstanding." "Curtis," Mildred interrupted sharply. "Stop lying." The room went silent. Mildred turned to me. "Tell us what really happened." I took a breath. Christmas Eve. A semi-truck hit me on Interstate 94. 3 broken ribs, collapsed lung internal bleeding. I needed emergency surgery. Curtis shifted. "And you got it. So what's the problem?" "The problem is what you said when the hospital called you." Curtis went pale. "I was drinking. I wasn't thinking." "What did he say?" Lorraine asked. I pulled out the hospital transcript. My hand trembled as I unfolded it. "The hospital gave me a record of the calls." Curtis stood. "This is ridiculous." "Sit down," Mildred commanded. Curtis sat. Micah's hand rested on my shoulder as I read. Hospital. "Your father has been in a serious car accident. He needs emergency surgery, or he may not survive. Can you come in?" I paused. The room was utterly silent. "Curtis Reed, how serious?" "Hospital life-threatening. We need you here as soon as possible." Another pause. "Curtis Reed, if he doesn't make it, let me know. Otherwise, I'll deal with it after Christmas." Several people gasped. Whitney's face went white. "Curtis, tell me he's wrong," someone said. "It's out of context." I was stressed. I had clients. "You were sober enough to host a party," I said. Mildred's voice was ice. "You left your father to die so you wouldn't miss a Christmas party." "You don't understand the pressure I was under." I stood slowly. "The pressure you were under." Curtis's voice rose. "You were always too needy. Always calling, always wanting to visit. It's constant pressure. I have my own life." There it was. The truth finally out. The room erupted in shocked voices. But I only heard one thing: my son didn't want me in his life. He never had. "Enough," I said. My voice cut through the noise. Everyone went quiet. I'm done making excuses for you. I'm done pretending your absence is normal. I'm done chasing a relationship with someone who doesn't want one. I looked at Curtis. You couldn't sign a paper to save my life. That tells me everything. So you're cutting me off, Curtis snapped. No, you cut me off years ago. I'm just finally accepting it. Mildred spoke, her voice heavy with disappointment. Your father would be ashamed of you, Curtis. Curtis looked around the room at family members staring with shock and disgust at his grandmother's cold gaze. Fine, if that's how you want it. He grabbed Whitney's arm and left. The room stayed silent after they were gone. Then Lorraine came to me, took my hand. I'm sorry you had to do that, but I'm glad you did. Others came forward apologizing for not seeing it sooner, thanking me for the truth welcoming Micah. But I barely heard them. I was exhausted, drained. But also for the first time in 20 years, I felt light. Let's go home, Micah said softly. Home, his house, where someone actually wanted me. I walked out with Micah beside me, and I didn't look back. The day after the confrontation, I asked Micah to drive me back to my apartment. Letting go of Curtis meant reclaiming my own life once more. The apartment felt different when I walked in, smaller, quieter, emptier. Not because anything had changed physically, but because I was seeing it through new eyes. I sat down at the kitchen table and looked around. This was where I'd raised Curtis after his mother died. This was where I'd cooked countless meals, helped with homework, waited up when he stayed out late. This was where I'd convinced myself that the distance between us was normal, that all adult children drifted away from their parents. But it wasn't normal, and deep down I'd always known it. I thought about the last 5 Christmases, how Curtis always had an excuse not to come. The last 3 birthdays phone calls that lasted less than 5 minutes. The years of one-sided conversations where I did all the reaching out, all the trying. I'd told myself he was busy, stressed, that he'd come around eventually. But standing in that hospital room on Christmas Eve, barely able to breathe, I'd finally seen the truth. Curtis didn't care if I lived or died, and he'd said it out loud. That afternoon, I called an attorney. When I met with him 2 days later, I was clear about what I wanted. My life insurance policy is worth $400,000, I said. I want 80%, $320,000 to go to Micah Sullivan as the primary beneficiary. The remaining 20%, $80,000 should go to local charities, the food pantry at St. Mark's Church, the volunteer fire department, and the homeless shelter on Oak Street. The lawyer took notes, and I want Micah Sullivan designated as my legal medical representative. He should be the one making decisions if I can. What about your son? The lawyer asked carefully. Curtis Reed is to receive my father's watch, my wedding ring, a few family photos, and a letter I'll write explaining my decision. Nothing else. The lawyer nodded slowly. And the house, your other assets. Everything goes to Micah. When I told Micah that evening, he looked stunned. Clayton, you don't have to do this. Yes, I do, I said firmly. You showed up when it mattered. You've been more of a son to me in 2 weeks than Curtis has been in 20 years. You are my family now, the family I chose. Micah's eyes filled with tears. He gripped my hand tightly and didn't let go. 3 days until New Year's Eve. Time for a fresh start. New Year's Eve at Micah's house on Birch Avenue felt like the first real celebration I'd had in years. It was a small gathering, nothing fancy but genuine. The living room was decorated simply a string of white lights, a small table with sparks and party hats, and the faint smell of roasted chicken coming from the kitchen. Arthur and Phyllis arrived first, Micah's fellow electricians, carrying a bottle of wine and a platter of appetizers. Clifford, the elderly neighbor from next door, showed up with a homemade pie and a warm smile. We sat around the table together, chicken, mashed potatoes, green beans, and stories that made everyone laugh. Arthur told a joke about a botched electrical job. Phyllis shared a story about her grandchildren. Clifford talked about his late wife and how much he missed her during the holidays. Then Clifford looked at me and said something I'll never forget. Family isn't about blood, Clayton. It's about who shows up when it matters. I felt a lump in my throat. For the first time in years, I felt like I belonged. As midnight approached, we gathered around the television to count down. The energy in the room was warm, hopeful, everything I hadn't felt in decades. Then my phone rang. It was sitting on the coffee table, screen up. The name flashed across it, Curtis. The room went silent. Micah looked at me. You don't have to answer. I stared at the phone. I looked at the people around me, this new family I'd chosen. I looked at Micah, who'd stayed by my side when my own son couldn't be bothered. I let it ring, and ring, until it went to voicemail. The countdown continued. 3, 2, 1. Happy New Year. Everyone raised their glasses. To new beginnings, Arthur said. To chosen family, Micah added. To the people who care enough to show up, I said quietly. We toasted, and I felt lighter than I had in years. After everyone settled down, I checked my voicemail. Curtis's voice came through casual, normal, completely unbothered. Hey, Dad, it's me. Happy New Year. I figured maybe we could talk sometime. Give me a call. No apology. No acknowledgement of what he'd done. Nothing. I sat there for a moment staring at my phone. Micah came over. You okay? Yeah, I said, I am. I carefully typed out a text message. Curtis, when you're ready to have a real conversation about what happened, a real apology, I'm willing to listen. Until then, I need space to heal. I hit send. Curtis replied within minutes. Seriously, you're going to cut me off over one mistake. That's harsh. I stared at the message. One mistake. He still didn't get it. I turned off my phone. Micah sat down beside me. What did he say? That I'm being harsh, I said. That it was just one mistake. Micah shook his head. He doesn't understand. No, I said. He doesn't. But that's his choice. And I've made mine. I looked around the room at Arthur and Phyllis laughing together, at Clifford pouring himself another cup of coffee, at Micah sitting beside me like the son I'd always hoped for. This is my family now, I said. The people who chose me. I put my phone down and returned to my real family, the ones who had chosen me. So here's what I want you to understand, whoever's listening to this story. Family isn't always blood. I spent 20 years chasing love from someone who couldn't give it. 20 years making excuses, convincing myself that the distance was normal. That Curtis was just busy, that he'd come around eventually. But love isn't what you say, it's what you do. Curtis is my son by blood, but he never acted like one. Micah was a stranger, and yet he became the son I'd always needed. Real family is the people who care enough to show up. Not the people who share your DNA. Not the people who are supposed to love you. The people who actually do. And caring isn't about words, it's about action. When I was lying in that hospital bed, barely alive, Curtis couldn't be bothered to leave his Christmas party. But Micah, a kid I'd helped 15 years ago, dropped everything and ran to my side. That's the difference. That's what real family looks like. Here's what I learned through all of this. It's never too late to choose yourself. I was 73 years old when I finally stopped making excuses for Curtis. I thought I was too old to start over, too old to build a new life. I was wrong. Boundaries aren't cruel. They're necessary. When I told Curtis I needed space until he could apologize, he called me harsh. But setting boundaries wasn't about punishing him. It was about protecting myself. Gratitude matters more than blood. Micah didn't owe me anything, but he showed up anyway. That gratitude, that loyalty, it means more than any biological connection ever could. The best revenge is living well without them. I didn't hurt Curtis by changing my will. I didn't hurt him by choosing Micah. I simply stopped hurting myself. Peace is better than anger. I'm not mad at Curtis anymore. I'm just done. And that's okay. It's been 6 months now. I live a few blocks from Micah. We have dinner together a couple times a week. My health has improved. I've started volunteering at the food pantry again, the same one where I met Micah all those years ago. Arthur and Phyllis invite me to their grandkids' birthday parties. Clifford and I watch baseball together on weekends. Micah calls me every morning to check in. This is my family now, and I've never been happier. Curtis never called back after that New Year's text, and you know what? I'm okay with that. I don't hate him. I don't wish him harm. I just don't need him anymore. Because I finally found what I was looking for all along: real family. Not the family I was born into, the family I chose. And the family that chose me back. So if you're in a situation like mine, if you have family who treat you like you don't matter, who only show up when it's convenient, who can't be bothered to care when you need them most, I want you to know something. You deserve better. You deserve people who care enough to show up. You deserve to be chosen. And if the family you were born into can't give you that, find the family who can. Because in the end, the people who love you will show it. And the people who don't, they're not worth your time. So choose yourself. Choose peace. Choose the people who choose you. That's not revenge. That's freedom. Looking back at this true story, I realize how much time I wasted waiting for someone to love me the way I deserved. Don't be like me. Don't spend decades making excuses for people who won't show up when it matters. These grandpa stories aren't just about my pain, they're about the lessons I learned. Too late. You teach people how to treat you. Every time I accepted Curtis's neglect, I told him it was okay to treat me that way. It wasn't. If there's one thing I want you to take from this true story, it's this: stop chasing people who don't chase you back. Your worth isn't determined by whether your own blood chooses you. God gave us the wisdom to recognize real love not through words but through actions. My advice: set boundaries early. Don't wait until you're 73 and lying in a hospital bed to realize who truly cares. Choose the people who choose you. Build your family with intention, not obligation. Grandpa stories like mine changed my life. I hope this true story changes yours too. So here's my question for you. Have you been making excuses for someone who doesn't deserve them? Are you waiting for love that will never come? If these grandpa stories resonated with you, please leave a comment below sharing your own experience. Subscribe to this channel so you don't miss more powerful true stories like this one. And if you know someone who needs to hear this message, share it with them. Sometimes the stories we need most are the ones that hurt to hear.